Behind waves of barbed wire and rings of anti-aircraft batteries, Kapustin Yar emerged from the Soviet desert. A stark monument of secrets with underground chambers that made even Moscow's closest allies uneasy. Local villagers spoke in hushed voices about strange lights and unexplained phenomena, while scientists vanished behind an impenetrable veil of secrecy. By 1953, Western intelligence agencies had heard enough whispers to know they needed proof of what was happening within those walls. A British Canberra bomber, equipped with a camera powerful enough to photograph a cathedral from 75 miles away, inched closer through ghostly clouds to expose the mysteries of this desert fortress. Without warning, the horizon erupts with a formation of Soviet MiG-15 fighters streaking toward the Canberra. The bomber banks sharply into a cloud bank as bullets whip past its wings. Whatever lies beneath, it is worth protecting at all costs. The atomic race begins. As World War II drew to a close and tensions between the Soviet Union and its former allies turned cold, a race for missile supremacy began, one that would define survival in the new atomic era. For the Soviets, the search for a remote testing ground for their bold missile ambitions led to an isolated stretch of desert in the Astrakhan region, an expanse perfectly hidden from prying eyes. On May 13, 1946, the Soviet government designated the area as the 4th Missile Test Range, Kapustin Yar, under an official decree. Lieutenant General Vasily Ivanovich Voznyuk, a prominent figure among Soviet military ranks during the war, took the reins of the project. Tasked with creating a stronghold for rocket testing, Voznyuk supervised the entire construction effort, guiding every step of Kapustin Yar's development into a clandestine fortress for missile experimentation. By 1947, as Cold War tensions rose, the site's construction accelerated at a breakneck pace. A specialized brigade arrived with equipment and materials, promptly erecting essential structures. A towering concrete test stand for rocket launches, a reinforced bunker, a technical station, and an installation building. Roads and a 12-mile railway were laid down to connect the site to the main supply routes, streamlining the constant influx of personnel, materials, and machinery. In the aftermath of Nazi Germany's defeat, the Soviet Union scrambled to dismantle the remnants of Nazi technology, seizing machinery, blueprints, and scientists to fuel its own ambitions. German expertise, captured V-2 rocket parts, and engineers arrived at Kapustin Yar, enabling Soviet scientists to not only replicate Nazi missile technology, but to refine and transform it into a formidable arsenal that would cement Soviet power. However, this mission was no simple feat. Due to the lack of residential structures in the area, the initial residents of Kapustin Yar were forced to live in harsh conditions, lodging in tents, dugouts, makeshift shelters, and nearby village houses, isolated from civilization. By October 1st, Voznyuk confirmed that the range was fully operational. The first shipment of Nazi V-2 rockets arrived shortly after, and soon the Soviet Union stood ready to unleash its newfound technology. Kapustin Yar had risen from the desert as the fortress where the USSR's missile and space race would begin. Kapustin Yar takes off. Just as Soviet engineers were making preparations for the first rocket launch at Kapustin Yar, a group from the Ministry of Armaments was knocking on a residential building in Germany. The man who opened the door was Helmut Grittrup, a rocket scientist with an impressive resume that included working on the German V-2 rocket. His presence was requested at Kapustin Yar, and refusal wasn't an option. Grittrup was thrown onto a train and forcibly relocated by the Soviets through Operation Osavyakim, alongside many other German scientists. He was put in charge of 170 specialists within Scientific Research Institute No. 88, also known as NII-88. Their families would gradually join them in the weeks to come, starting a new secret life. When Grittrup arrived at Kapustin Yar, soldiers were still constructing key infrastructure. The first rocket stood ready on a test stand, hastily assembled from equipment shipped from Germany, barely completed. Yet the Soviets had no time for delays. October 18th was the chosen day for the first rocket takeoff. The first launch faced unexpected hurdles. Ignition issues required Soviet technicians to replace a pyrotechnic device inside the fully loaded rocket before the countdown could proceed. At 10:47 a.m. Moscow time, the V-2 rocket finally soared skyward, reaching a range of 128.5 miles. Although it deviated about 19 miles from its target and disintegrated upon re-entry, the Soviets declared it a success. Their missile program had taken its first explosive step forward. In total, 11 rockets were launched in this initial series, each with mixed results. The second rocket, launched shortly after, veered wildly due to a control failure, landing 112 miles off course. But the Soviets were unyielding, meticulously analyzing every failure to improve each subsequent launch. By the month's end, one rocket missed its target by a mere 2 miles. In less than a month, the final rocket of the series landed within 765 yards of its goal. An unlikely intruder. Testing at Kapustin Yar continued for decades, each launch pushing the boundaries of ambition and danger, drawing the anxious eyes of adversaries across the world. Yet, just 2 years after its founding, Kapustin Yar found itself at the center of one of the most peculiar and haunting episodes in Soviet history. This time, it had nothing to do with rockets. On June 14, 1948, researchers at Kapustin Yar noticed unexplained disturbances on their radar screens. Blips appeared and vanished in erratic patterns, defying the logic of known aircraft or weather phenomena. As concerns rippled through the ranks, military officials struggled to identify the cause. But as they gathered to assess the threat, an unexpected report came in. A MiG fighter pilot on patrol near the site had encountered something shocking. In his account, the pilot described a strange cigar-shaped craft gliding silently through the sky, an object unlike anything he had ever seen. This was no Soviet vessel, nor did it resemble any known enemy aircraft. Its sleek, alien form seemed to defy the rules of aerodynamics, gliding with unnatural grace. The pilot maneuvered his MiG to engage in a high-speed pursuit to intercept the unknown aircraft. When attempts at communication failed, he locked onto the mysterious object and, with a quick decision, fired a missile. Upon impact, the craft erupted in a blinding flash of light, momentarily illuminating the barren desert below. But the explosion burned too bright, the shockwave sending the MiG and the strange vessel spiraling downward, crashing into the desolate earth below. Whispers spread through the base as soldiers and scientists alike speculated about what had fallen from the sky. According to lingering rumors, the incident was quickly veiled in secrecy by Soviet authorities. Under strict national security protocols, the wreckage of the otherworldly craft was gathered and transported to hidden facilities at Kapustin Yar. Some say that an intricate network of underground chambers was constructed, specifically designed to contain and study the remains of this enigmatic entity. To this day, many claim that Kapustin Yar became the Soviet Union's version of Area 51, a hidden labyrinth of secrets, where the government conducted chilling investigations into extraterrestrial life and technology. Shadowy reports describe guarded chambers filled with strange artifacts and unearthly remains, as Soviet scientists worked tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of this inexplicable encounter. The incident remained an enduring enigma that many external forces have attempted to crack throughout the years. Spies in the sky. As rumors surrounding Kapustin Yar seeped through the Iron Curtain, Western intelligence agencies grew increasingly desperate to uncover the secrets hidden behind its fortified walls. The stakes only soared when German scientists working at the remote site began to return home, hinting at advanced missile development that could crumble any foreign defenses. With mounting urgency, the United Kingdom prepared for an unprecedented covert mission, a daring Anglo-American collaboration with the Royal Air Force, or RAF, to capture intelligence on this secretive installation. In 1952, the RAF selected the Canberra bomber for the mission, a high-altitude aircraft capable of reaching heights beyond the grasp of most other planes of the era. But this would be no ordinary reconnaissance mission. The Canberra was fitted with a 240-inch focal-length bomb camera, capable of taking incredibly detailed long-range photographs. During test flights, this device managed to capture a crystal-clear image of St. Paul's Cathedral from 75 miles across the English Channel. The Canberra flew along Soviet borders and over East Germany, soaring at altitudes exceeding 42,000 feet, where it could capture images of Eastern European facilities. During these missions, a second RAF aircraft shadowed the Canberra, watching for condensation trails that could betray its location to Soviet radars. Then, in August 1953, an RAF Canberra bomber launched from Giebelstadt Air Base in West Germany with a mission that bordered on the impossible: to photograph the Kapustin Yar missile test range. This time, the Canberra climbed higher, reaching an altitude of over 65,000 feet, gliding silently over the Volga River as it approached the forbidden test site. But the Soviets were ready. As the aircraft neared Kapustin Yar, Soviet MiG-15 fighters launched into the sky, charging right toward the intruder. The MiGs fired upon the Canberra, bullets tearing past as the bomber took evasive maneuvers. Only the Canberra's superior altitude and agility saved it from certain destruction. As the Canberra managed to secure its priceless photographs, the pilots pushed the aircraft southward, racing toward the Caspian Sea with the Soviet fighters hot on their tail. The chase was relentless, but the Canberra finally broke free, bolstered by its height advantage. Hours later, it made a safe landing, carrying images that would become a priceless asset for Western intelligence, revealing the true scope of Soviet missile capabilities. And the tests kept rolling in. Upon confirming the existence of one of the most enigmatic Soviet military installations, Kapustin Yar quickly became a primary target for United States intelligence. By the late 1950s, Lockheed U-2 reconnaissance aircraft, operated by the U.S. Air Force and the Central Intelligence Agency, began soaring into the same hostile Soviet airspace Brits had attempted to breach. What these high-altitude spies discovered was deeply unsettling, unveiling a site that had grown from a missile test range into a veritable citadel of nuclear and military experimentation. Reports revealed that Kapustin Yar had evolved into a hub of nuclear detonations, with at least 11 nuclear tests conducted on its grounds. These detonations, between 1950 and 1961, unleashed a combined force of 65 times the destructive power of the Hiroshima bomb. The site was an epicenter for nuclear experimentation, where mushroom clouds bloomed over the desert. From 1957 to 61, Kapustin Yar hosted 5 atmospheric nuclear tests, their mortal low-yield explosions serving to deepen the USSR's understanding of nuclear warfare in a world teetering on the edge of Armageddon. Nuclear explosions carried on, unprecedented missile experimentation and weapons testing going on in the background. Over 20,000 guided missile detonations and nearly 200 unique weapons trials added to the site's legacy. By the early 1960s, Kapustin Yar had taken another step in its evolution, expanding beyond terrestrial warfare and looking further than ever before. On March 16, 1962, it launched the Cosmos 1 satellite, marking its entrance into the Soviet space race and leading the way for a series of smaller satellites to follow, carrying the Soviet banner into orbit. To support this ever-expanding operation, the secret town of Znamensk was constructed nearby. Designed to house the growing number of scientists, engineers, and military personnel, Znamensk became a hidden city, omitted from maps and kept a classified secret. Access was restricted and granted only to those with special clearance. Yet the looming shadow of Kapustin Yar was not without its cost. As the Soviets poured resources and ambition into this military treasure, they began to feel the weight of its dangers. Kapustin Yar was a beacon of power and pride, but also a dangerous gamble. Danger always strikes twice. On October 24, 1960, the Soviet Union issued a cryptic news bulletin. A plane crash on a secret mission had claimed the lives of numerous officials and scientists. What the world didn't know, and wouldn't learn for nearly 3 decades, was that in reality, a catastrophic explosion had turned a Soviet missile test range into a scene of devastation. The secrecy around the incident has kept details suppressed, but the world has learned that chaos erupted when a short circuit within an R-16 intercontinental ballistic missile ignited its engines prematurely. The rocket's fuel tanks, packed with hundreds of tons of highly flammable fuel, nicknamed Devil's Venom, detonated in a blinding flash, a massive fireball engulfed the launch pad, consuming everything in its path. Personnel stationed nearby were lost to the fire as the ground quaked violently, sending shockwaves that shattered windows miles away. The camera operator, Colonel Valentin Anokin, filmed the tragedy from a distance, his lens capturing the heart-stopping moment when Soviet ambition turned to ash. The truth was buried under layers of state secrecy, and the Soviet government refused to acknowledge the incident until 1989, when the full scope of the tragedy began to emerge. Yet even now, questions remain. Some accounts place the disaster at Baikonur Cosmodrome in Soviet Kazakhstan, while others claim the explosion occurred at Kapustin Yar. Colonel Anokin himself recounted that the families of victims still don't know the full story, fueling speculation about what really transpired on that tragic day. In his testimony, Anokin revealed the desperate context behind the tragedy. Quote, "The Soviet Union was desperate to develop its own nuclear weapons to counter America's atomic capability. The Soviets knew they also needed long-range rockets to deliver the warheads. They were producing rockets as if they were cucumbers." Despite the Soviet Union's attempt to conceal the tragedy at one of their testing sites, Kapustin Yar's infamy remains alive to this day. In July 2024, Ukrainian drones struck a building within the facility, igniting a blaze that sent towers of black smoke curling into the sky. Footage of the attack, shared by space historian Anatoly Zak, shows the aftermath of the strike, with the caption, quote, "The historic test range at Kapustin Yar, where Stalin's rocketeers were learning to fly Nazi ballistic missiles in 1947, is apparently being denazified by Ukrainian drones." The attack raised questions about Kapustin Yar's ongoing role in Russia's military operations. Were Ukrainian forces targeting a specific project, or were they striking a symbolic blow against one of Russia's most prestigious and secretive bases? Whatever the case, the strike proved that nearly 80 years after its inauguration, Kapustin Yar remains a center of intrigue and speculation, leaving many foreign forces wondering in fear what exactly hides behind its walls.